Enjoyed this classic show in black and white called Music, Music, Music. Well, our special guest is also a classic, and music, music, music is exactly what he is all about. Please welcome the one and only Big Tiny Little. Hey,
well, hi,
Tiny.
Mary Lou.
Hello, I'm so glad to have
It's
you here.
good to be here.
I bet this brought back some memories for you.
It did. Pete Fountain playing there, Someday Sweetheart. That was a great arrangement he had. I played the Dill Pickle Rag.
Yeah.
I'm still playing the Dill Pickle Rags.
You are.
Still
Brilliantly.
Every night.
Now, you told me you cut your teeth on the piano.
Well,
There's got to be a story that goes with that.
yeah, I think I was around 3 years old. Whatever time we started walking, you know, and they tell me that I used to, you know, waddle up to the piano, and I'd bite the keys of the piano, because I asked later on in years, how come the keys are also chipped on this old upright we had? And I says, well, you used to bite the keys off the ivories. And I says, you're kidding. And he says, no. So that's how it all started.
Now, your dad was also a tiny little.
He was tiny little in his orchestra. He started out in the 20s. He and Lawrence, they started out at the same time. They were very good friends.
Is it true that your dad offered Lawrence a job?
He offered him a job he wanted to hire Lawrence. You know, he'd make a great front man with his accordion for $35 a week, and Lawrence wanted 40. And so over $5, they didn't do it,
But they stayed friends.
all these years. Oh yeah, my dad would come in the house from a job, and I'd always be listening to radio, Captain Midnight, or one of these shows that were on, and he'd run over and he said, I got to change this over to Yankton, South Dakota, WNAX. Lawrence is playing. He'd always listen to Lawrence's band. Always admired Lawrence.
How about piano? Did you take lessons for that?
I started my lessons when I was well, I always were there. I don't want to use the word pounding on the piano, but I was always trying to figure out something. 5 years old or so. So at 6 years old, I decided I wanted to take lessons. The first teacher was this man teacher that he'd get mad at me because I didn't practice right. Because my dad had a band. Of course, I like popular music.
Sure.
And he'd whack me over the hand with a ruler.
Oh.
So every time I seen him coming for the lesson, I'd run and hide in the flower bed somewhere, and they're looking for me. So they finally agreed that I went to another teacher, woman teacher, and that was a little better. And then my third teacher, she knew my dad and understood about popular music. She says, I'll teach you a shortcut to reading music, popular music, so you can read it, if you learn one classical for me. So we made an agreement, and that's how I started.
You are amazing. She did her job well.
Yeah, she did. She did very good.
Now, you actually spent quite a bit of time in the military.
I spent 4 years. I was in the National Guard, and the Guard was activated to go to Korea. And I heard about it that day, and I ran down there, and I says to the recruiting sergeant, I says, you know, I'd be happy to join any other thing for 4 years, because I was a BAR man. That's a big rifle, you know. And I really didn't want to carry that big rifle. So he said, well, I need somebody. He called the captain of the Guard, and I was on the train the next morning from Minneapolis. I joined the Air Force for 4 years.
So how did you ever get to the Lawrence Welk show?
Well, it was funny, because I was thinking the other night, I was playing I had an all-Japanese band that I formed over there. I had a little radio show, and I recorded for King Records. And I told one of the guys, we were playing the Rocker 4 Club one Sunday afternoon, a jazz thing there in Tokyo. And he says, well, you're getting out of the service. What are you going to do? And I says, I think I'll go to California and join the Lawrence Welk show. Then I thought after, why did I say that? I didn't even know.
Good idea.
And, well, I got back. I stayed in San Francisco, and I had a band at a big supper club there. And we had formed, and then I told the guy we were going to leave that, well, they didn't like that too much. I said, I'm going to go down to L.A. So I came down to Los Angeles, and I was with a group playing around town, singles and stuff. So I went and introduced myself to Lawrence. I says, I'm Tiny Little Son. He says, what do you do? I says, play piano. He says, get up and play some. So I played a number that night. He liked it, and he says, where are you working? I says, it's a little supper club. It's called Meet Me at the Office type thing. I play single piano. So he and Lois Lamont showed up for a steak dinner, and they sat there all night listening to me play. And I walked out to his car with him, and he says, I've always wanted to have two pianos like Guy Lombardo.
You love Guy Lombardo.
Yeah, he wanted two pianos. I said, well, that'll work, you know. So I says, I don't read too well. And he says, we don't worry about that. So he got out there, the ballroom, and of course he wants to make the guys feel good, so he has them say, we need another piano. And the guys all voted, no, we don't need another piano. So he comes back and tells me that the boys voted, and they says, we don't need another piano. But you go down and get your uniforms, but don't tell them I hired you.
So you kept coming back.
So that's how I did it.
Now, I remember you at the Upright. Was that your idea?
Yes, I was the second piano player with the two grand pianos like he wanted. And then we were in, our first trip was at the Cadillac Sheraton Hotel in the fall of '55, and we were there playing for Dodge at the time.
The Dodge in your garage.
Dodge. Orson Bean was the host of the show. He was the piano player was Johnny Maddox, and he'd come out with his vest and his derby on. He played the old Upright. We got back to Hollywood, and I asked Lawrence, I says, you think we get an old Upright like that guy did in Detroit? I says, I will. So I played the piano roll blues on it, and that started the whole thing. So then I did it every week after that.
Who are your musical idols growing up?
Growing up, musical idols, well, I listened a lot to Fats Waller. I like Fats Waller, and then, of course, in those days, the jazz guys were like Art Tatum, and Bob Zerke was another one. There was some really good piano players. My dad always liked Frankie Carl because they had that smoothness about him. So I had to learn all these Frankie Carl things. And
I hear you had an interesting story with Lawrence the first time you played the Maple Leaf Rag.
yes, that was one of my downfalls. Lawrence says to me, says, when I worked at the Maple Leaf Rag, well, I wasn't a rag player. I like honky-tonk because only I knew those songs, but I was working towards jazz. Well, anyway, I went home and I worked boom, chunk, chunk, boom, boom, chunk, chunk, and then I tried to put the right, I mean, I worked 4 bars at a time.
Well, that's a tough one, too.
And I got back and I showed him. He says, you didn't rehearse it? And I says, yes, I rehearsed it. No, you did not rehearse it. And he chewed me out for 20 minutes in front of the band.
Oh.
Now, from Santa Monica to where I lived in Garden Grove at the time, it was about 45 miles. I sobbed all the way home. I mean, I just was brow whipped, but I tell you, next time I showed him something, it was perfect.
What did you learn from Lawrence?
Always to be perfect doing your job. And you know what? I treated that job. I thought, you know, I'm gonna, just like I'm in the service. You do your job and get lost. So during all the breaks, I'd hear them looking for me. Well, I'd crawl under the grand piano on the second tier, and I'd go to sleep under the piano. And they could never find me. They're looking in the dressing rooms.
Well, you've gone on to record 35 CDs.
Yeah, I've got a lot of CDs out of records.
They have an amazing career.
Yeah. My first record, Make Room for Tiny, sold over 400,000 copies. That's a lot of copies.
That's a lot of music.
Right.
And you've traveled all over the country. You still love to do it.
I love traveling. I've done a lot of USO shows. I went to Vietnam. I traveled all over there and did shows, and all through the, went down to Panama, did USO shows, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, all through the Caribbean.
Oh, we're so glad that you've continued to share your wonderful music with all of us.
And I'm still playing.
Thank you so much, Tiny, for being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you all for sharing another hour with us. So until next time, as Lawrence Welk always said, keep a song in your heart.